Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're journeying to a stunning corner of the South Pacific, an archipelago of nearly 1,000 islands scattered like jewels across the ocean. This is the Solomon Islands, a nation whose story is as complex and captivating as its vibrant coral reefs. It's a tale of ancient migrations, colonial ambitions, the ravages of war, and a determined path to independence. So, let's dive into the incredible history of the Solomon Islands. Our story begins over 30,000 years ago. Imagine early Melanesian peoples migrating from Southeast Asia and Papua New Guinea, becoming the first to call these islands home. They were expert survivors, living off the bounty of the land and sea through fishing, hunting, and early forms of agriculture. Over millennia, they developed intricate social structures and an incredible diversity of languages. In fact, over 70 are still spoken today. Then, about 3,000 years ago, a new wave of explorers arrived, the Lapita people. Recognizable by their unique, patterned pottery, they were master navigators, part of the Great Austronesian expansion that swept across the Pacific from Taiwan. The Lapita didn't just settle. They integrated with the existing Melanesian populations. This cultural fusion is the very foundation of the rich, diverse identity that defines the Solomon Islands today. Before Europeans arrived on the scene, the islands weren't a unified kingdom. Instead, life was organized into small, self-governing communities. Power was held by clan chiefs and respected warriors, and society revolved around the unbreakable bonds of kinship, land, and the sea. Traditional beliefs were woven into the fabric of daily life, honoring ancestral spirits and nature gods. This spiritual world fueled a flourishing artistic culture, expressed through magnificent wood carvings, vibrant dances, and epic oral stories passed down through generations. But life wasn't always peaceful. Warfare between different tribes and islands was common, often sparked by disputes over land or important rituals. To facilitate both trade and warfare, canoe building became a highly developed skill, creating vital networks that connected the islands in a complex web of exchange and cultural interaction. The first European eyes to gaze upon these islands belonged to Spanish explorer Álvaro de Mendaña in 1568. Convinced he had found the source of King Solomon's legendary wealth, he named them the Islas Salomón. But the gold he sought never materialized, and for the next 2 centuries, Europe largely forgot about this remote archipelago. It wasn't until the 18th and 19th centuries that European interest was rekindled. British, French, and German explorers began charting the region, followed closely by Christian missionaries in the mid-1800s. While they introduced new ideas, their arrival was a double-edged sword. Along with new faiths came devastating new diseases that local populations had no immunity against. Worse still was the brutal practice of blackbirding, the forced recruitment, essentially kidnapping, of islanders to work on sugar plantations in Fiji and Queensland, Australia. This practice decimated communities and left a dark stain on the region's history. By the late 19th century, the great powers of Europe were carving up the globe, and the Solomon Islands were caught in the middle. To assert its influence and counter German expansion in the region, Britain declared a protectorate over the southern islands in 1893, extending its control over the entire chain by 1900. Under British rule, development was minimal. The colonial administration set up missions, a few schools, and some small plantations producing copra, dried coconut kernel. But the islands remained largely on the periphery of the empire. While traditional power structures often continued at a local level, Christianity spread rapidly, profoundly changing the spiritual landscape and replacing many indigenous belief systems. For decades, the islands existed in this state of colonial quietude, but a global conflict was about to shatter the peace and change their destiny forever. World War II was the turning point. In 1942, Japanese forces invaded and occupied parts of the islands, recognizing their strategic importance for controlling the Pacific. This prompted a massive counterattack from the United States and its allies, leading to one of the most ferocious and pivotal campaigns of the entire war, the Battle of Guadalcanal. From August 1942 to February 1943, the island became a brutal battlefield. Thousands of soldiers on both sides, as well as Solomon Islander civilians, lost their lives, and the landscape was left scarred and devastated. But the war also brought unintended consequences. The massive Allied presence introduced modern infrastructure, technology, and a direct exposure to global events. Crucially, Solomon Islanders who bravely served as scouts and laborers alongside the Allies developed a new sense of shared identity and purpose, planting the seeds of a future nation. After the war, the Solomon Islands returned to British control, but the world had changed, and so had the islanders. The experience of the war, combined with the wave of decolonization sweeping across Asia and Africa, ignited a local political awakening. In 1950, the first advisory council with local members was established, marking the beginning of a slow but steady journey toward self-governance. By the 1970s, this gradual process gave way to powerful nationalist movements demanding full independence. Charismatic leaders like Peter Kenaloria and Solomon Mamaloni emerged, becoming the powerful voices of a people ready to chart their own course. Their efforts culminated on July 7, 1978, when the Solomon Islands officially gained its independence from Britain, with Peter Kenaloria becoming its very first prime minister. But independence was just the beginning of a new set of challenges. The young nation had to grapple with immense difficulties. Its population was scattered across hundreds of islands. Ethnic diversity sometimes led to friction, infrastructure was scarce, and its economy was heavily dependent on a few exports like timber and foreign aid. Despite these hurdles, the country successfully maintained a democratic government and worked to foster a sense of national unity. However, deep-seated tensions, particularly over land rights and economic opportunities between people from Guadalcanal and the neighboring island of Malaita, eventually boiled over. From 1998 to 2003, the country descended into a period of violent ethnic conflict known as the tensions. The unrest resulted in hundreds of deaths, displaced thousands, and brought the government to the brink of collapse. In response to a plea for help, the Regional Assistance Mission to Solomon Islands, or RAMSI, was deployed in 2003. Led by Australia and supported by other Pacific nations, RAMSI's mission was to restore law and order, rebuild state institutions, and reform the police force. The mission was a success, and after 14 years it withdrew in 2017, leaving behind a more stable, though still fragile nation. Today, the Solomon Islands continues to navigate the complexities of the 21st century. It faces ongoing struggles with government corruption, the existential threat of climate change and rising sea levels, and an economy still reliant on foreign aid and resource extraction like logging and fishing. In recent years, its foreign policy has drawn international attention, particularly its growing relationship with China, which has caused concern among traditional partners like Australia and the United States. Yet, despite these modern pressures, the cultural heart of the Solomon Islands beats as strongly as ever. Traditional music, intricate crafts, and ancient ceremonies remain vital parts of everyday life, existing alongside modern institutions. The nation's breathtaking natural beauty, its pristine coral reefs and lush rainforests, makes it an ecological treasure. The history of the Solomon Islands is ultimately a powerful story of resilience. From its earliest settlers to the struggles of the modern era, its people have continuously adapted and endured, all while holding fast to their unique cultural soul. Their journey reflects the broader story of the Pacific, small island nations with immense heart, striving to balance tradition with progress in a world that is constantly changing. Thank you so much for joining me on this historical journey today. If you enjoyed this video and want to explore more incredible stories from around the world, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next one.